extreme than Western women ever did. But again, I don't see as much high heels as I once did. All right. Now, this is a practice that's still going on. Yes?
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes.
I have to let you know campus is closing at 1.
I'm aware of that. Thank you. Yeah, we're
Alright.
going to dismiss just, okay. Thank
Got
you.
it.
That is our new department secretary. Name is Vicki. Anyway.
Oh.
Is it snowing?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now, heavily, I'll tell you what now. We're gonna, okay. Folks, I taught elementary school for 5.5 years. Most of the time, college students don't act like 10-year-olds, but most of the time. I've stayed in college teaching for 14 years, elementary school. I stayed in 5 years because I mean, we had a law in the books that tell me still in the books if you taught for 5 years, they forgave half your student loan, and I understand that law is still in the books. I taught for 5 years and hired in at Lockheed. Taught myself electronics and got out of it. But anyway, leaving that. Women were especially devalued because, well, they were considered inferior, and a lot of families in time of famine would kill their female children, particularly female babies, because they didn't want them. And this practice is still going on in China, or was even in the 20th century, yes?
So would they starve them, or they actually?
Actually, I don't know what method they used. I mean, I don't know, but they would simply make sure, not necessarily starve, but they would destroy the female babies on purpose. Yes?
Would they also kind of make their female daughter act more like raise them as a boy? Like,
I don't know about them doing that now, because they actually, well, your book will wind up saying at one point their women were looked on, and I want to quote the book, as worthless sex objects, which means that they were not necessarily made to act like boys, especially with the foot binding and other stuff that went on. But they seem to have forgotten, all right, they wanted men to carry on the family name, and folk, they had forgotten something. Without the women, they weren't going to have any babies anyway.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All of us know that, and maybe they did too, with how there'll be a woman's way. And what has happened is when the men who came up with half a generation after me in China are having a difficult time finding wives because there are not that many women around. Now, that may not be as true with the younger generation as it is the generations past. But there were, the Chinese have practiced the problem, I'm going to call it problem, female infanticide, from 1,000 or more years ago up to the present time. And again, today they use it as justification. Well, we have to practice birth control because we have too many people. I'm going to have more to say about that in later chapters. All right, one thing that the Chinese were good at that the Europeans began at this time too is the novel. The novel is impossible until you get the printing press, and the Chinese invented printing. When I say, well, why is the novel impossible? Simply, you can write a 200-page novel if you try writing one with pen and ink, and then turn around and copy it with pen and ink, and turn around and copy it again. You won't get very many copies of it. Whereas with a printing press, you can write a novel and then turn around and make come in as many copies as you want. And that's especially true of today's computers. You can write a novel with a computer and turn out as much as you want. But the Chinese had invented the press, and they did write novels. Okay, moving on. Well, let's see. Is there anything more I want to say about China? Well, yes, it looked like for a while they were going to catch up to us. Now, China is involved in a space race, but if history is any indication, they will get so far and then find themselves stopped. For a while, all right, now I'm jumping to 2014. Most of you may know who owns America's debt.
China.
China. Most of the stuff you buy at Walmart comes from China. I mean, I just recently, about 10 months ago, bought what used to be a $300 ham radio. I mean, I'm a ham operator. Got it for 35 bucks from, brand new, you might have guessed it, from China. Chinese are putting out some stuff. I mean, being into electronics, I can buy what in America would cost $30 for a transistor, find it in China for $4 or $5. I mean, it's great and all that stuff, but they have problems. Yes.
My dad did work with LG, and
Yes.
they sent over people from China. I don't remember if it was Japan or China, but they bought everything at the malls here. They said they can't afford it. It's less expensive here at like the outlet mall than it is over there.
I'm a little bit surprised to hear that.
Like, especially clothes and electronics and shoes.
That they have to pay a higher price there than we do here. I'm a little bit surprised. But they are having their problems, and one of the problems they have is their air is virtually unbreathable, and they have no way to know. And a lot of that pollution, I just heard in the last week, is finding its way to the United States. And 10% of the polluted air you breathe in California, the pollution originated in China. It actually crosses the Pacific Ocean 2,000 miles and pollutes our air also.
Is that one they wear masks?
They have to wear a mask because they simply would suffocate. The pollution has been said to be so bad that you can't see a person standing just a few feet in front of you for the fog. And yes, they have to wear masks to try to filter some of it out. I mean, we thought we were having a bad pollution problem years ago, but it's nothing to compare with theirs. And again, they don't know what to do. They have a lot of people congregate in one place. I mean, in our country, we have a lot of people, but not as many as the Chinese do. But our people are scattered out, much more so. In China, they're all bunched together in one small section of the country. And China is also a smaller country than the United States, even excluding Alaska. And their people are crowded together. And I'm going to move quickly through Japan. Let me see. Japan. One thing I want to say about Japan, unlike anywhere else in the world, talking about dynasties, the Japanese have only had one dynasty rule for 2,600 years. They have never, ever even attempted to overthrow their emperor. Now, granted, their emperor oftentimes, half their emperors have been just simply figureheads, just like the emperor is today. But they have never, ever overthrown their emperor. All right. Your book talks about the West, and one thing I want to say about the West, they kicked foreigners out. Now, fast forward to 2014, they're still kicking foreigners out. Their population, they have had times of population growth and population decline. During this period, everybody listen, during this period we're talking about, their population tended to remain stable. Because throughout their history, the Japanese have never had any qualms, any moral qualms against abortion or infanticide. Infanticide is killing a baby after it's born. Or any form of birth control. They've never had any qualms about it. So they have managed to oftentimes keep the population level. And it's gotten so bad now that I'm fast forwarding in 2014, that it's estimated that the Japanese are going to die within 50 years if they don't change their ways. Here's what happens, folks. Once a culture makes a decision to limit its population, some experts believe that decision is irreversible. How's that? All right, I hope I don't step on very many people's toes, but I have to say this. A family that only has one child, I mean, this couple decides only going to have one child, this one child grows up lacking the social skills necessary to find a mate. Oftentimes, now folks, this is true. Now, I dated a couple of girls in my time who were only children. And in both cases, it did not work out. What was wrong with the girls? They did not know. They couldn't. Their dream was to have a man they could control, manipulate. They didn't know how wrong it was. Now, one of them never married. The other one eventually married and only had one child. What did children do for each other? I mean, if you have a bunch of children, that children learn social skills, not from parents, but from each other. Your sibling can be a member of your own sex or the opposite sex, it doesn't matter. I want to tell you a little story. I mean, I see it slowing out. I want to tell you a little story. It happened to me. My 6-year-old son played a card game with me, and as his daddy, I mean, I knew he wasn't playing the game right, but I mean, you know, I figured, hey, I want to encourage him. I let him play his own game. I thought, well, he's too young to know any better. Then he started playing the same game with his 10-year-old sister, and in a few minutes his sister kicked the card, stormed out and said, "You cheat!" Which one of us did that boy the most good in the long run? His sister. If he learned something from his sister he would hardly have learned from me, and I didn't realize, hey, maybe I was encouraging without meaning to be a cheat. His sister took over and corrected him. I have 3 children. And again, children who come from large families tend to be better able to find companions, better able to marry. A Japanese woman, it's said today, is the typical Japanese woman is not the least bit interested in anything that has to do with marriage, sex, or babies. All they're interested in careers, and the young men are wondering, what are we going to do now? I said that once, and I had a Japanese girl say, all the men are interested in is pornography. I said, that might be true, but you're dying. The dying is still dying, no matter what. You can find all kinds of excuses for not keeping your race or your ethnic group going. And I mean, granted, if I were a woman, I don't imagine I would want a man who was interested in pornography either. But nevertheless, the result is they're going to die if they don't change their ways. All right, having said that, I mean, as you can tell, all right, I've emphasized population a lot, but at this time they kept the population steady by infanticide, birth control, and abortion. Christians, they kicked Christians out. Again, this was to remain true until after World War II. They finally expelled almost all Europeans, and this is still largely true. They do not encourage foreigners to come in, and again, unless they change their ways, they're going to die. Now, I'm going to skip on and move on to Korea. The one thing I want you to remember about Korea is they're sometimes known as the hermit kingdom. They want to keep foreigners out, even as the Japanese. Korea has gone back and forth between, well, actually they spent most of their time either being ruled by foreigners or divided. Fast forward to 2014, they're still divided, and North Korea is still largely ruled by foreigners. So they spent a lot of time kicked around. Now, let me double check to make sure that I haven't left out something I really should say. Then I'm going to, and nobody's going to object, I'm going to dismiss early. Don't worry about that Tokugawa or Great Peace. Okay, that's it. All right. The weather is supposed to really warm up by Thursday. If the snow is starting to lay, you're dismissed.